This week on Cantina Chronicles, as Grant is stranded on an unknown planet in the Anawat sector, Adam and Ben discuss the brilliant Star Wars comic run from Alex Segura, Star Wars, Battle of Jakku, Republic Under Siege. We also cover some interesting news stories, including the new writer for the new Jedi Order movie featuring Daisy Ridley, and much more. Saddle up to the bar and let's talk Star Wars.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the bar. We are very, very excited to talk about Star Wars comics this week and some pretty exciting news stories, though we are a bit bummed. Grant could not make it tonight. He is stuck in some star cluster somewhere out there in the galaxy.
I know.
We'll hopefully, yeah.
I'm hoping for, suddenly he breaks through the anomaly and bombs in the middle of the podcast somewhere, but... Yes. If not, we're hoping for the best, but we know that scoundrel will find his way home eventually.
Yes, absolutely. And this is a peek behind the curtains because, Ben, if that happens, you need to do, when that happens, if it happens, you need to put the sound effects of talking through an ion shield from episode 4. If he comes in for just a couple of seconds while he's coming in.
That would be so great. It's just like, oh, there's like a broken up transmission. Yeah, good times. I love me some sound effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun news, great comics. We're going to do the full arc of, let me just check it out, Star Wars Battle of Jakku, Republic Under Siege by Alex Segura, with Rafaela Morales, Sinclair Campbell, VC's Caramanga, and more.
And you're going to hear those names again in just a minute or two before we actually get there. So we'll talk a bit about that. Some comic news. This is the second arc of the 3-arc story of the Battle of Jakku, as you mentioned. And actually, the last arc just wrapped up last week, so we'll talk about when we want to cover that. But yeah, this is
fun. Yeah, we should do that soon. Cool. These are great. So sorry for awesome. Being tardy on the coverage here. I've seen other comic coverage that there's not much.
No.
Usually happens episode to issue to issue. But the nature of our synthesizing business, it just feels better to do full arcs here. So hopefully you can relive it. And for those that haven't read comics, hopefully we're giving you some motivation to read them because they're
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's what I always talk about. Is like, no matter what we say about it, and we'll give away some spoilers, it's still worth reading because there's so much depth going on in these comics. Yeah.
Yeah. But first, the news.
Yeah.
Gosh, I think the biggest news is we have our third writer for the Daisy Ridley New Jedi Order Star Wars film.
Yep.
And this is, the last... So first was Lindelof, second was Stephen Knight, who jumped off last October, and then now we have George Nolfi.
Yeah.
And Nolfi's two biggest claims to fame, the things you might have seen in the various publications, is he wrote the Bourne Ultimatum and he wrote Ocean's 12.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll talk about him. It was not a name I recognized at all. Like the other two names that came off, when they came up, I recognized them. Which, that's not always necessarily a good thing, right? I feel like part of what happened with Lindelof, it sounded like a pretty solid treatment. They just wanted to go a different direction. They didn't want to go old Rey, which I get. They wanted to be able to use Daisy Ridley and follow that character's arc throughout her life. And Stephen Knight just seemed like he had a lot of plates spinning, and the joke Grant would say is like he would just get on a transatlantic flight and take out like a notepad and just start writing and just write 6 hours and then be like, hey, look, I wrote something, here we go. It seems like he might have been a little preoccupied with the ending of Peaky Blinders and a couple other things going on.
To that end, Nolfi's is currently writing 2 other untitled films, and one called the Afghanistan Project and one called the Andrew Knopfer Sci-Pri Project. Andrew Nauer sci-fi project.
Interesting.
So, okay. Why not just add a Star Wars in there?
Right.
See how that works out. Unless he's got one in his back pocket.
Yeah, he might. And these other ones, we don't know how much he's writing. And it's, if Grant were here, he would probably tell us. He would tell us because he does it himself. It's not uncommon to have a writer writing multiple things at once. You kind of need to switch around a little bit. But so let's start with some of the positives. Ocean's 12. I am an apologist. I think it's actually one of the better entries in the Ocean's franchise. I'd be interested to get Grant's take on it because it does have a bit of a Last Jedi feeling to it when you watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I love all the Ocean's movies.
Mm-hmm.
That is my least favorite because of the meta. Julia Roberts.
That's a rough part. Yeah.
I can't stand that.
I can't stand that part
in art. It's but I mean, I get it. The show's very cute and whatever. But I could have lived without that.
No.
But
I like the mastermind. I like the European setting. I like the mastermind. Other thief just beating the gang every single time, and it's I also appreciate that they were trying to do something different when Ocean's 13 is completely watchable, but it's basically hey, what if we just did Ocean's 11 again and added Pacino, and then you're okay, we got Ocean's 13, which is again completely watchable, but not really trying to up the ante. Ocean's 14 is also going to is in pre-development right now. If anyone's curious, that seems like that's going to happen.
I'll watch that.
Same here. They're very watchable films. Bourne Ultimatum. So he knows how to write on big projects. These are, franchises that were juggernauts. He wrote the Bourne Ultimatum, which is the third. The Bourne movies have the worst titles ever because I just can never remember which.
Right. They don't make it's is Supreme bigger than Ultimate? Or
I don't know. Yeah, and so this is the third, so it's kind of the final entry in that, and he does a good job of kind of wrapping everything up, answering questions. Carly loves those movies, so I've seen those movies.
I love them
a lot. I like them. That's about as far as they go there. Yeah.
The writer of the other movies is Tony Gilroy.
Yeah. And that shows through. And I think he does. I think when you watch the Bourne Ultimatum, it does not feel like there's a drop off, right? It feels very in tone with the first two movies. So that means he can write in that voice. And maybe that's part of what brought him into this, right? Is that he has a Gilroy-esque writing ability.
Yeah, I wonder if, they must have talked, Gilroy must know him. It makes all the sense in the world that Kennedy would be hey, Tony, do you have any suggestions for this movie? And he's what writer is really great that I really respect that I work with, and it's George Nolfi. I can see that happening.
Yeah, that totally makes sense where that connection might be. I didn't even think of that.
That was the first thing I thought when I heard Bourne Ultimatum. I'm because actually I saw the headline before I saw the photo, and I was like, Tony Gilroy's gonna write it. And then but I didn't know that he didn't write all of them. I thought he did, but it's apparently Nolfi wrote that one. So that's exciting. That's a positive.
Those are the positives. I want to go on maybe a couple of negatives.
Right.
Here's the thing. Every writer has clunkers. Timeline being a clunker of a clunker. Timeline is one of the final Michael Crichton books.
Okay.
It's a bad book. The only thing I remember about the book that I thought was interesting is they go back to medieval times, and he spends 10 pages writing about how smelly it is when you go back in time, which I'm I appreciate that. That's true
real
stuff.
Talk.
Yeah. Not a great book. Hard to make a not a great book into a great movie, right? If the source material is not great, good luck. It was also his first credit, so you got that going on. Then he had stuff like The Sentinel, which was just kind of a Michael Douglas vehicle, very forgettable. But the thing is, I don't think any of these were box office bombs, right? And when you look at his Rotten Tomato score, a lot of the films get in the 70 to 80%, which means people like those films, right? They're watchable films.
Yeah.
The Adjustment Bureau, Boring Snooze Fest, Allegiance I never heard of. And then his last two that he wrote were Spectral and The Banker. And this was 2016 and 2020. Spectral, I never heard of these, never watched them. We should watch them before passing judgment. But I will say what's interesting about both of those is Spectral was, I think, taken up by Universal. They were going to release it, canceled the release, and just sold it off to Netflix. And The Banker was released on Apple TV. So he's written a couple of straight to, streaming.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just wondering how much do you think that Nolfi has to do as far as writing goes here?
Yeah, I don't. That's a really good question. I don't know. I feel like so. I don't know. Not to get like too like technical, like writing credits is like I think something Star Wars wants to avoid is when the writing comes up to have 10 different names attached to a movie. That's a bad look for a movie, right? To have like written by, through an idea from, through yada yada. It just is a bad showing. And so I think, and Grant can confirm this, I think in order to get sole writing credit, you have to write at least 51%. So a perfect example of this is Sylvester Stallone is notorious for taking other people's written movies, literally just writing it, having a word count and making sure he changes 51% of the words. And so he can get writing credit on that.
Wow.
He once tried to the movie Cobra. He once tried to get the publishing house who published the book Cobra to change it to written by Sylvester Stallone. He's an interesting dude. He's a very interesting dude. So I feel like for their sake and Nolfi's sake, and the other thing is like, don't you want, like, I would be like, just do your thing, do your own thing. And then we kind of look at the three things we have, and then you bring them in to be like, is any of this useful, right? As opposed to like trying to like write from a skeleton. But at the same time, I feel like not to do the whole Rise of Skywalker reevaluation, I think it might have suffered a little bit from them wanting to completely like restart it as opposed to like taking more from the.
I don't think
Trevorrow.
they did. I mean, we've read the Trevorrow script. There's a lot there that they kept.
Yeah, I guess some of that stuff towards the end when they're like on the Star Destroyers feels very Trevorrow-like when they're like
and
doing
the intro. I mean, they didn't steal a Star Destroyer, which would have been amazing.
That would have been amazing. Yeah.
But they, they filmed the Eye of the Webbish Bog, which was from that, and I don't know. There was a bunch in there. I guess
there was stuff in there, and he got credit as I remember, right? Like I think it's on the thing. So so I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. We'll talk about this with our next news item. I'm like, I just want Star Wars, and like I'm not trying to rush them, but like, I don't know, hire 5 writers, and just be like, we're gonna pay one of you, like we're gonna pay one of you a bonus, whoever gets the best one done first.
He's not here, so I won't embarrass him to death. But like for real, hire Grant.
Honest to God. Yep.
Yeah. Reach out to us. Like if any of you are listening, like just have a conversation, have an interview with Grant and let him give you some ideas. Cause like you hear him here, he's got a bunch of great ideas on this podcast. Offline, it's amazing. Adam and I have read his scripts. They are amazing.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're so good.
And he's just got like a really good sense of the lore and like able to sort of, really make a very inspiring script. And like I really wish Andy did actually have the swagger. He's like, oh my gosh, give me this thing, I will write it in a week.
I mean that's the thing, and this is like not necessarily connected to that because I don't want to downplay Grant's abilities, but like of the 3 movies that are kind of of the movies that are presently, right, there's more of them that are on schedule, this seems like the no-brainer one. Like this seems like the easiest one to write in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because the most riding on it, though. I mean, because it's like there's the next 20 years, this is setting up the future. The most important stuff that isn't just going to be rehashes of old things. Like, sorry to jump down your throat on this, but like I'm passionate about it. Like this could set up, another 3 trilogies, a trilogy of trilogies. This could set up, countless, and then all the countless books and TV shows and all this stuff. If they make it compelling, this has got to be a hit. Even, the first movie can just be weird. Like that's, the David Lowery, like acid flashback was like kind of what I want for Mangold's film of, the Dawn of the Jedi. It can just be weird and then develop. It doesn't even have to be about anything. It doesn't even have to be about the Jedi really, like, until the very, very, very end. But like this one, everything's established, but they need to find a new compelling galactic dynamic, and it with the governance, with the role of the Jedi, and then introduce an antagonist that's a threat. Yeah. And I mean, I think is, if you really like, I don't think a B- effort is going to do it. Like you really need an A+ effort to kick this off the way you want it to go, if you want the IP to sort of flourish as much as it has.
I agree with all of that. I still don't think it's that hard. Because you're in, and not that I'm like, I can't do it, right? So it's not me just saying like, it's the easiest thing ever, but like, you have the IP. The IP sells itself. The IP is like, you get the built-in IP. I agree. The other thing you don't have, which is the difference between Rise of Skywalker, you don't have a definitive date this movie needs to come out. You're not building up against too hard of a deadline because all these other movies can be slotted in. Yeah. So you have time to bake it and get it right? Like, that's the thing. Is just like, and like, I don't know, like, it just, there is a formula. I mean, here's the thing. The reason why I don't think it's that hard is we've done the pillars. Write it with the pillars. If you write with the pillars, you're going to succeed. Right?
I was going to say the same thing. It's like, we've only had about 200 conversations about this movie, and we've done it like, I mean, there's the pillars, you know what a Star Wars is. Everyone knows what a Star Wars is. And we're learning more too, as we'll talk about in the next piece of news, if we ever get to it. Yeah. Because I think that very much speaks to one that I think is undervalued. But the scaffolding's all there. You're right.
That's the thing.
But it's like still, it's
you got to get it right.
The nuance there's a lot of room for nuance in there. And I think I'm just sort of wringing my hands over it.
I think everyone is. And I think you're getting analysis paralysis with a lot of this stuff. Because they had some flops. I mean, Solo was a flop just because they ate the cost of two movies. If they'd shot the movie on the first budget, it would have been a financial success. It still made back. It didn't lose them money. It just didn't make money for them.
It didn't make them $1 billion like the 3 Skywalker films.
And that's the thing. Rise of Skywalker is a critical failure, but a financial success. That movie did gangbusters, and so. But I think they're just like, we have to get it right, which they do. But I feel like they're just and not to bring up the Accolade again. We don't have to rehash it. The numbers came out. It was the second most streamed thing on Disney Plus this year. So I don't know. Right. I don't know what's going on there, but I think they need to go into Lucasfilm or whatever they're calling it, into Star Wars land, shut off the internet and let them bake. Just do not engage.
Right. And it's like, if it's coming down to numbers and it's like a financial decision, like, okay, I mean, the movie industry, the film entertainment industry sort of has its own benchmarks and things outside of the rest of what's going on in the world right now. Though in America, it's a lot of corporate greed and whatnot, but like, whatever, it's a very fungible, like, demarcation for success in the entertainment industry. And, and they're the biggest, Disney's one of the biggest ones. And, Kathleen has, a lot of sway. So I think they've got a lot of room. It's like, if the benchmark is, I mean, I don't even know. And it's such a wild west with like on-demand streaming. It's just like, what's valuable? Like,
right. Yeah.
It's like, I mean, is it how many viewers were retained? How many eyes were on it? How many people were like, because it's like a lot of people maybe didn't watch it, but what if they were all new viewers? Like, all new
if you have them paying
Disney
new
Plus,
subscriptions,
like,
that's all that matters. If you're
right, and how many people got a free trial to Disney, watched it, and then quit? Like, I don't know what any of that means, and I don't really want to get into it, frankly.
No, I know this year was the first year that Disney Plus reported earnings and not losses, so that means something's going right. And Disney as an industry had, like, last year was one of their worst years ever, and this year is one of their best years ever. Like, you got Deadpool and Wolverine, you got a couple other ones. We'll talk about that shortly. Like, so I feel like they're feeling like excited again, and Iger's excited, and I think we're getting this weird part where they're just writing checks again. Like, that's what Iger's known for. It's just like, do it, do this, do that. Less on Disney Plus, more in the films, more in the more on screen. Do you want to talk about the other kind of film announcement?
Yeah. Before we get to that, I want to humble brag and bring up an idea with you.
Oh, sure.
So one thing I've mentioned is about like the popularity of certain other Star Wars IP, like Outlaws, which I just platinumed. Huh?
Yeah, well done.
I mean, about 6 months after you, but I did
not a competition.
Pick it up, and I just love it. I'm just I'm just like meandering the 4 planets and finding chests that I've never found before, and like playing Sabacc and kicking Lando's butt in Sabacc, and like having a great time playing. Like, I'm betting on the ponies, and like, it's such a good game.
There's so much to do in it. Yeah,
it's very unique. I like it more than every Assassin's Creed. and and it's Ubisoft, the same ones that made them. Anyways, oh gosh, I'm seeing all these like updates about football right now. And
yeah, I know.
Just I don't know. So the complaint I've heard is that there's saturation, that there's like oversaturation with Star Wars. I've sort of poo-pooed that because personally, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
But what do you think? I mean, do you think that can be contributing to, Solo, The Acolyte? Is there just too much Star Wars flying at people and it doesn't feel like a destination sort of event like it has in the past?
Yes. That's inevitable when you have this much Star Wars going on. But that doesn't mean, it just means that it doesn't feel special, but Marvel doesn't feel special. Like certain things don't feel special and they maintain so like, it's evolving into something
Captain
else.
America movie. That looks amazing.
Looks awesome.
I want to watch it theater.
Yeah. We already got our tickets. We're going. Like it's one of those things where just Star Wars has evolved. It is not this niche kind of, it's weird to say like a multi-billion-dollar thing was niche, but it kind of was. Like it was kind of, and now it's for everyone, which is one of the best things about it. And everyone's watching it, and it's just becoming part of the monoculture in some ways. And a couple things about the oversaturation. I think they've pulled back on that. So a couple things are in their favor about that. They're slowing the tap down with how much stuff's coming out in Disney Plus. And like if like Skeleton Crew, there hasn't really been a lot of reporting on it, but seems to be a success. It was at least a critical darling, and the internet loved it, and I think the numbers were there. We know Andor season 2's coming, so if the last two things that happened, you're only as good as the last thing you did, right? And that's very much with these streaming things. And if the last two things you did were Skeleton Crew and Andor season 2, they're going to turn the tap back up a little bit, right? Because more people are viewing, and we haven't had a movie in theaters for 6 years. Now, are we had 6 years or 5 years? 5 years and change. Wow.
Yeah.
And it's going to be another 2 years at least. So you're going to have like 7 years. And it's hard to say something's oversaturated when you haven't had a movie in that area in nearly a decade.
When the features should be the tentpole events that hold up Star Wars like attention, right? Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I thought that so anyway, I'll believe that the tap is being turned down when I see it. And for right now, I've got Andor to look forward to in a couple months, and I can't wait for that. And I know there's not much after that, but they may have done that sort of because they thought we were going to get 2 features in 26, which I can't believe that's going to happen.
We're going to get 0 features in 26. I think. Okay. I think it's going to be 2027. I think 2027 Christmas is when we get our first Star Wars.
You don't think we see Mando by Christmas 26?
No, I think it's on the plot for 2017, or 2027. But let me double check. Yeah, I know, right?
Slogging through time.
Yeah.
I thought that was because I thought like the Rey movie was supposed to be like summer.
No, you're right. It's May. So you're right. It's May 2026 is Mandalorian. So it's like, so it's a year and a half away, or a year and change. Do not be surprised if that takes the Christmas slot, if they don't push that back. But though it seems to be progressing.
I wonder if we think and Ahsoka season 2, summer 25 until summer 26, and the thing in summer 26 is a feature. Like that kind of makes sense to sort of starve us out a little bit before they give us something else.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's a little more planned than I was thinking about. Right, it is very much this like, you're gonna be jonesing for your next fix, right, of Star Wars by the time it comes out, and then you got Ahsoka coming out after that, which kind of ties everything. And there's still the Ahsoka movie. I mean, it's not the Ahsoka movie. There's still the Filoni movie. That was one of the 3 that was announced that I think everyone's kind of forgetting about, because that's not the Mandalorian Grogu. He had something else planned. And if your first 2 movies coming out are the Mandalorian Grogu and the other movie we're going to talk about in a minute, that's not a bad idea, because both of those are just going to be giant blockbuster fun movies, right? I think that's kind of what they want to do, is like, and then it gets weird, and then you get a weird one, right, when you get the Prime Jedi or whatever they're going to call that, and then you have your what's going to start off your new temple franchise, which is the Rey. So if you get those first 3 right, people are primed to get like, yes, please. Well, I want you to not restart it, but kind of reboot a little bit. Yeah. So
the Skywalker saga, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
That would something with the most gravitas like to it, which is that sort of central what's going on with the Force, because it does make sense to pass it down to an adopted Skywalker.
Yeah.
And then sort of carry forth the really heavy themes of the galaxy far, far away in those. And that all makes sense. So to me, that doesn't necessarily I will be itching in a corner come Christmas 2025.
Yes.
As I said last week, being where's my Star Wars?
Yeah.
I'm rereading novels and
honestly.
I mean, I've already I rewatched Ahsoka season 1 and loved the heck out of it. And recently, and that was great. But let's move on. I'm dragging us here because the next news is very exciting.
Yeah. We got
Adam,
we got another movie that is announced, and we knew before that Shawn Levy, the director, or Levy, I don't know, the director of Deadpool, most famously the director of Deadpool and Wolverine, has a film. And that film is two things that kind of came across. That's the next one going into production. That one is it's ready to go. It feels like he's written it. It's good to go. And they are circling around. They didn't say lead, but they're circling around an actor. It's usually your lead actor. And never on my bingo card would I have ever had Ryan Gosling in a Star Wars. I'm not saying that's bad, but I never would have had that on my bingo card. I read that. I told it, and here's a test. I told that to Carly. Carly was like, yes. So I'm there you go. I'm like, all right, that's a good decision.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, I forget we announced the Shawn Levy movie. I remember it came out and I was like, okay, I'll believe it when I see it. How many films have been announced, right? And it's Lando's still going to be directed by Donald Glover at some point, right? But
sure. Yeah.
Of course it is great. And then all of a sudden the Gosling news, and it went through the talk shows.
Yeah, right.
It was on the Today Show. They were
Today
talking
Show.
about.
It was Hollywood Reporter. That when they're doing that, that means it's
it's real
happening, and probably it's actually inked and signed, even though it's not yet, because they wouldn't release that stuff unless it was really just down to whatever. It's so interesting. I also think it makes sense for Gosling because he's an interesting actor. He is one of the most charismatic and attractive men ever to do anything, who kind of keeps trying to get into mainstream action movies and get a franchise started, and he can't seem to get it to work. And it's so interesting when I watch it. I watched The Fall Guy, which is the last one. That movie is completely watchable. It's
really good.
I enjoyed it. It was fun. Exactly what I was looking for.
It seemed to really I hate masturbatory Hollywood films. Yeah. And I was like, ugh. But then one night it was a Saturday and I'm I'm putting this on, Jenny. We're just going to watch it. And I loved it. It.
It was super watchable. I mean, it was great action. I mean, I love they lived up to it by actually doing good stunts and good real stunts in it. And it's one of those ones that I feel like Hollywood is still reeling a bit from that one, because that one they're really why didn't no one can go why didn't that work? There's not a good script to explain why that one didn't click. And so that didn't work for him. I mean, I don't know if he won the Oscar, but he had La La Land. So he's getting into big things, and it's not like he's not working and he's not a successful actor, but he doesn't have his franchise really.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, give that man a trilogy.
Yeah.
He's, I mean, obvious to me, the most low hanging fruit is he is a Han Solo scoundrel.
Yes. You have to. Do not make him a Jedi. Please do not make him a Jedi. No. That would be unwatchable. But if you make him just a scoundrel, he is. That's who he is in everything. Heart of gold scoundrel sold.
Right. And I think it was either you or Grant that said it a couple podcasts ago, but it was really Han Solo is the magic ingredient that made Star Wars take off. This sort of lovable, swaggerific, rando that doesn't really believe in all this mumbo jumbo, but hey, I got to make a buck. Yeah. And that avatar in the Star Wars galaxy is kind of that's the secret ingredient that makes it believable.
But they don't do it. There's nothing in the prequels. There's no one in the prequels that really hits that mold. Mace Windu is maybe the closest to it. In some weird way. He's the most head shaking, this everyone's dumb. And then in the sequel trilogy, Han Solo is your Han Solo, and then Han Solo dies. which is fine.
Yeah,
and like
and you kind of have Poe Dameron a bit.
But he's completely bought into the New Republic. That like
the governance and all that.
That's the thing, and I like.
He could have been that dude.
He has the swagger, but he doesn't really have the. He's not a skeptic, really, right? And like they kind of did a little bit, and then episode 9, it really just is like basically Adam Driver turns into your Han Solo for like the last 15 minutes of the film, which is like my favorite,
the
best part. But like you only get that for a couple, so you need that. I just had thought, what if he's this is gonna be big. This is gonna be, you could do this, but like he could be another. We don't know that Han Solo doesn't have another kid somewhere with Kira. Like Han Solo and Kira's kid could be Ryan Gosling.
Oh, Kira.
Yeah, because I like that. Like, I feel like that looks like someone who would come out of the two of them. Like, I feel like he'd be scruffy and whatever. Like,
oh man! But all right, I have to actually you right now because I don't think the timeline works. It depends what era.
Right, it depends on the era, right? Like, it doesn't have to be concurrent with. It could be. It
could be concurrent with the like original trilogy, and like, he could just be out there.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Tangentially related, and like if you do something like, I mean, what's interesting, you could do like a Rogue One type of thing where like somehow his story is intimately connected to important parts of the trilogy, of the original trilogy, without actually influencing it, right? Because there's a lot there. Like, I mean, you could have like, I don't know, many Bothans died. That's our favorite line. That's never been explored. But like, who knows if who knows if he doesn't get enveloped in that and is part of that crew, by the end, helping the Bothans steal the plans for the second Death Star. Who knows, right? Like,
that's such a great example, Adam, of like how like the galaxy is vast and there's lots of possibilities and there's all these other stories, and there could have been a whole plot line that like because I mean we know through the like Crimson Reign, Crimson Dawn, like arcs in the comics, that Kira was actually setting up a lot of pieces to help take down the Empire as well, in sort of parallel to the rebellion, with their spy networks that I think were inherited by the New Republic. And and like she was doing this whole thing. It's like there could be another layer of that too with her son. Like he could be a Crimson Dawn operative and, go off on his own way after his mother dies. And like, if she dies, actually,
or you just tell another orphan story, right? That like she gave him up because she didn't want him involved in this whole thing and didn't want a reminder of Han. Like, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. But like rich family on Hosnian Prime, she would subject another child to poverty. But wow. That's wild. I love that. I love that. Somewhere Grant is just like, I missed the wrong day.
Yeah.
We've only mentioned it 100 times.
I don't like this. This is why this is something better but it is, there's so many stories you could tell with that. And I like Ryan Gosling. I'm always rooting for him. Like I like him. He seems like a generally nice guy and really charismatic and funny. And so
no, he would bless the Star Wars pantheon with his presence. I mean this in the best way possible. He is like, if Hollywood could create a like AI actor, it would be Gosling. Is it like
very much? Like he's the ideal, like the platonic ideal of a Hollywood star.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just like with a look he can invoke anything. I mean, Baby Driver is like amazing.
Yeah.
One of like, and I mean, does he even talk in that like whole movie? And it's just like you can't take your eyes off him.
No, he's charismatic. I mean, he's just wonderful in that way. And then the other thing about it too is just like you kind of forget, because I feel like he's been playing kind of the scoundrel role in a lot of ways. He's done the Fall Guys. He did not the other guys, the Good Guys. No, what was the one with him and Russell Crowe, which is really fun. I can never remember. It's like the new guys, the other guys. It's something like that. The problem is the name is forgettable, but it's very good.
I'll have to put it on my list.
Oh, it's really, really fun.
Russell Crowe, and Gosling. You got
it's very much. I think it's written by the guy who wrote Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Lethal Weapon, and so it's very much that, two guys, one's a train wreck and the other one's not. Very funny stuff with his arm being broken in a cast for most of the movie. Comedy ensues, and the nice guys. There we go. I'm like, that came out with like around the other guys and the other one that came out. So he's the nice guys. Yeah,
too many guys. A lot of guys.
Nice guys, completely watchable. And he's it. But I think you've kind of, because he's been doing these kind of more mainstream fun movies that you kind of forget he has the acting chops as well. Like he started out, I think, in the movie like it wasn't Primal Fear, but it was one of those where he was just like a high school high school kid who ended up being like on trial for murder, and thinks he's like everyone thinks he didn't do it, and he actually did, and he does like a psycho turn in it. That's pretty good. Like he can really act. That kid can act. That 40-something-year-old kid can act.
Is he really 40?
He's got to be. He's got to be. I know. It's wild. So no, I'm happy with that. Shawn Levy. I mean, like, not my first choice for a Star Wars director, but I'm really warming up to it because, like, let's just get a fun, action-packed Star Wars, and he can direct the hell out of stuff. There, I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine, for all whatever is going on, I'm that movie always blows me away to being like the third movie in a franchise that kind of really made itself irrelevant on purpose. Suddenly became very relevant in the Marvel universe, the MCU, and still it didn't lose the fun aspect of it. Like to be able to thread that needle was kind of amazing. Yeah,
I mean, it was like free jazz, that movie. There was no rules applied to that movie. It just like he just made an entertaining movie that just did whatever it wanted the whole time and laughed at itself. And like, I mean, if you can do that, I feel like, you can probably do anything. So
and he loves. Yeah, and he loves Star Wars because he did that other Star Wars-esque time travel movie with Ryan Reynolds that was a Netflix exclusive, which had lightsabers in it. What's it called? Lightsabers. There's a whole.
Was it the Gareth Edwards?
I think movie? It was the Adam Project was the name of it.
Oh. Okay.
Also very watchable. Forgotten because it came out in the pandemic and it was like a Netflix movie, but when you watch it, you're like, that might be one for you to watch. It's like it's very watchable. It's got fun time travel rules to it, and Ryan Reynolds just being charming as hell. So,
all right. Well, okay.
Yeah. So I'm okay with that. Any other news about movies? I think that's everything. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. This is interesting because this is coming out in January. Star Wars Celebration, I think is it May in Japan this year? I think it's.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's good timing because don't you want him inked and signed? Yeah. So you can walk him off on stage. Yeah. So I think that's why some of the stuff we're starting to see kind of moving ahead with the new writers and everything, because they got to get their ducks in a row for Celebration because they need a big celebration this year, I think.
That should be a massive celebration because they could be talking about 2 or 3 movies in production. Yeah. Ahsoka season 2.
They'll have a Mando and Grogu trailer guaranteed.
Yeah.
We won't see it, but like that's the one where I don't know what the time different. I can't even do the math, but like that's one where I may have to stay up and actually like watch it because the only way you'll get it is like the 10 minutes that it's on the internet before it gets taken down.
Oh, did they take it down? Because I feel like you could actually watch it after the fact on YouTube.
Some they allow, some they don't. Some that are like a couple of the ones that were like only available kind of will drift through, but usually you can get someone who's live streaming it illegally. And usually for the next 10 minutes or so, because I remember there's a couple of ones that like the first Mandalorian trailer that showed IG-88, I was able to watch through a bad camcorder under someone's shirt.
Yeah.
Before they're able to do it. So we'll get that. So they got to have a lot of big announcements for Celebration.
Right on. Right on.
Then,
that's exciting.
Yeah, you want to do a couple
comic news?
Yeah, a couple of quick comic news. So one is that there's been a bit of they revealed a little bit about the first ongoing series that's coming up, which is like Vader's Legacy, or is it Legacy of Vader?
Yeah.
I can never remember that. By,
Legacy of Vader, probably. Yeah.
By Charles Soule.
Really a lot about Kylo Ren, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. And I think the conceit's going to be kind of back and forth. There's going to be like, how stories about Vader influence Kylo and stuff like that. And so which makes sense because it's Charles Soule, and he's so good at writing Vader.
Let's go.
And I kind of got this news backwards because I was just on Instagram. I don't know why. I'm so done with it. But like, I was very curated for Star Wars, so all I get on Star Wars is all Star Wars, so I can avoid all the other horrible things. But he was on there. It's kind of random. I saw him with a picture of an actor I like, a person I like, who also does like the George Lucas talk show. And I'm like, why is he posting him hugging this guy who in the George Lucas talk show, which is this fake talk show in New York they do like live. It's pretty funny. The color commentary guy is Griffin Newman, an actor called Griffin Newman. He plays Watto. He does Watto every time, and he has like a fake nose, and he just does the Watto voice the entire time.
Okay.
It's pretty wild. But like, I was like, why is he posting this? And then like, I got involved in the comments, and like, so many people were just like, I ran into this guy. I should maybe, I forgot I did this from a couple years ago. How's everybody feeling out there right now? Because the news dropped that Watto's fate is going to be revealed in, I think, issue 1 coming next month of this new comic. So
that's such a Soul move to be like, you know what? I hate that guy. Yep. And like Vader just storms in and just like cuts him down and spits on his grave. And it's sort of like,
I kind of love it, right? Because like, you know, that Anakin had a little bit of like, there's a little bit of a connection between him and Watto. Like, it wasn't all hate in some ways. I feel like even when episode 3, there's a little bit there, but Vader's like, no, like, he's like,
you know what? Yeah. No, I don't think anyone writes Vader better than Soul. I just don't. And And I mean, if it was like the parts, like the little bits and bobs that Kylo is able to assemble to influence what it means to be Kylo Ren, like, that is fertile ground. That's really fun. It's fun.
It's classic Star Wars backfill that's needed.
Yeah,
like, I just like,
that's
give us more depth.
comic material right there.
Yeah. And I cannot wait to see his take on Kylo, because I feel like that's a character that has not gotten enough focus on. Like, there was a couple of like the early days of Kylo Ren, but I want Kylo, like, I want
pure evil Kylo.
Yeah, what's he doing before, you know, the Force Awakens, right? Because we know he's already out there doing bad stuff. What is he doing between these movies? Like, I just want pure dark side Kylo a little bit. Like, make me,
because I think Soul got that for Vader, was really like the early days of just pure hate Vader, and like him doing all of his darkest stuff. And then it was sort of later on that they sort of played around with like, maybe he was not light curious, but he was starting to have feelings for his this woman that looks exactly like his wife, and you know, these feelings for his son, and this like deep-seated hatred really for his boss, and the Emperor, and like a real resentment there. And then, you know, that's when it starts waffling, but we don't really have, you know, in the films, we get a lot of the sort of the Soul stuff, or the late Vader comics, which is like Kylo like struggling with the light. Wanting to be drawn to the light and not being able to turn that off. And, you know, and so it'll, pure hate Kylo would actually be really fun.
Yeah. And I love it. Like, I love, like, let's explore the fact that we just see him being obsessed with his grandfather to the point of having the mask. Right. I mean, it's one of the best, it's one of the best things that, like, one of the best scenes or images in episode 7 that just really had my imagination flowing. Right. This idea of just being obsessed with his grandfather. Right. I just love that idea. Execution's interesting, but I loved it.
I mean, the first movie was great. I mean, he was pure dark side, just like kills a whole village, steals the main character, messes up a destroyer, kills a bunch of people, and then finally is unmasked by his father in the first film. You know, I mean, if you know, one thing is just like they tried to do too much in each individual film. I think when you have that sort of baton pass, I think that's one of the sad byproducts. And I think if you have like a master plan, you can sort of, you know, you can pick your moments better for like what kind of reveals and things you get. But I don't know, whatever. I'm not going to.
No, I agree. It's but it is tricky. But this is why the backfill is so important, right? Because it gives more depth. Because that's the thing. It's just like that helped me so much with the prequel trilogy. It's just reading all the books surrounding it and like the Clone Wars and everything else. When I go back, I have a deeper appreciation for episode 1, 2, and 3 because of all those things that are in my brain. And I'm hoping the same thing will happen with the sequel trilogy, right? Which I enjoy, but like having this more, it will add more fake depth, you know, to it that I always love. The other news to come out, which is something we had talked about way back when, is this is the first time since Marvel started publishing Star Wars again that we haven't had a main run Star Wars comic, like actually like just entitled Star Wars. And I had really bet hard that they were going to have announcements and there would be a new Star Wars taking place after Return of the Jedi. And I was right, just not in my timing, because the only one they announced was Vader's Legacy. So I was really kind of perplexed by this. And like right now we have no ongoing Star Wars comics, right? We have the Battle of Jakku, but that's a 12 issue miniseries. Like that has a finite ending. The High Republic stuff has a finite ending to it. And so what came out 2 days ago is, we're getting Star Wars again. We're getting main run Star Wars starting in May. It is going to take place post Return of the Jedi. There's a little bit of information that's really interesting. The first thing I want to say is it's going to be written by Alex Seguro and Phil Noto. So in a lot of ways, I think
very much.
This Battle of Jakku is actually just a prequel to the Star Wars comic we're getting.
So that would make most sense.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't make any sense for them to be pre-Battle of Jakku, post. I think there's only a year between the Battle of Jakku and the Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't make sense for them to go backwards.
Yeah. And so we get a little glimpse into what the Holy Trinity is going to be doing. And so it says Luke Skywalker defending the New Republic from bloodthirsty mercenaries. Love it. Han Solo investigating a deadly underworld mystery and saving a surprising ally. Sure. I have a guess who that surprising ally is, but we'll talk about her in a little bit. And Leia Organa. Yeah. Leia Organa grapples with a new alliance that opposes the goal of the New Republic. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
And just like the blurb they released is, the New Republic defeated the last remnants of the Empire at the legendary Battle of Jakku, but the greatest threat to its success are just emerging in this transformative period of Star Wars. So it's clearly just going to be post Battle of Jakku, and exactly what I wanted. I'm so excited to see, give me more of their stories post the movies. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I mean, the bulk of what we got was from the Bloodlines novel.
Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of like Luke went on a vision quest, Han started drinking again, and Leia did her job. Yeah. And and Han kind of felt they sort of eventually fell out with the arrival of Kylo and Kylo's sort of propensity for the dark side and passing him off. As soon as he got passed off to Luke, I think that's when their marriage fell apart.
Yeah, that seems to be.
Then they started going, but it's sort of that's a pretty. There's still a lot of broad timeline there. I mean, I think it. Well, goodness. Oh yeah. So Mandoverse starts 8 years after Return of the Jedi, which would be 13 ABY. No, 6 plus 8 is 14 ABY.
Something like that. Yeah. So you have a lot of,
or is it 9 ABY?
I think it's 9 ABY. So it's 5 years after, right? Or 4 years after.
I thought, oh gosh, I thought, no, I'm I'm getting it confused in my brain.
I know it's impossible.
You're right. I think Return of the Jedi is 4 ABY. Battle of Jakku is 5 ABY.
Yeah, and so it's 4 years post Battle of Jakku. So you have 4 years to tell this story and more. I mean, we don't know. They could actually go parallel to what's happening in Mandoverse, because the best thing about that show for the first season is it's so disconnected from anything that it doesn't influence anything, and then boy does it get wrapped up in everything.
And Kylo probably does. Even if Kylo was born a year after the Battle of Jakku,
I mean. I think it's less than that. I mean, we know that Leia's
is Leia preggers right now.
Oh yeah, if you look at it, so you haven't read the third arc, but boy, in every issue that bump is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I think she's ready by the end of the season. So I wouldn't be surprised if issue 1 of Star Wars is not Kylo's birth.
Kylo's birth. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because all right. And then so we know then 12 years after that, which would be about 17 ABY, he would be born. Which I think it's 15 ABY is when he's born, but
it's all weird. It's timeline is so clunky. It's so weird. And then do that math for a second, because now I have a awful thought.
But and he was born on 5 ABY, so that's a
okay, good. Because I'm no. Is that
1 year and 4 days after the Battle of Endor?
Okay,
so he's probably conceived on that luxury yacht.
I think he might have been. Yeah,
and he was trained by Luke from 15 ABY to 20.
That makes sense.
ABY.
And then, do we know when Leia's training took place with Luke? Because that could be part of the series as well.
Oh, yeah. I feel like that would be kind of immediate. She looked young. Right? They both looked sort of real, because I think they're both trying to figure out what they're going to do. And ultimately, Leia decides what's going on. So maybe she gives birth, raises him, does some training. That would be a pretty good, I have a young one at home, but I can do some training with my brother.
Yeah.
On a Kiva, and sort of, that'd be, a nice little nice little break. So that makes sense.
And it's so there's no. I was just looking up. There's no timeline. It just says sometime after the events of Return of the Jedi. So that's nice. So they left it over. So they're not, hamstrung by that. They could decide to do it in the comic, and it would work at that time. Because I'd love to see that. Like I want to see.
That'd be All right. So fertile ground in the future. Why don't we get to the present, which is sort of the Empire Strikes Back of this Battle of Jakku comic arc, which is it's interesting how like tight this is because. I loved the Aftermath books, and they'll always be a part, a spot in my heart. This might be what we're doing next Christmas is rereading the Aftermath.
Oh, I like that idea. That would be a good revisit because that's like the original, like that's a lot of the first stuff that came out after Disney's acquisition. And I was like flying a lot for some reason at that time. I think I read all 3 of those books on planes, and I was like so in for that. Yeah,
I don't think we covered them on Core World News.
No, I think those came out in like 2015 or 20.
Yeah,
they came out pre. I think they came out pre Force Awakens.
Yeah, they did. And they're great, and they're really important. And I keep waiting for crossover. And I think the Chiefs won.
Boo. Boring.
Yeah. I no. That's all right. I forgot what I was talking. Oh yeah, the Aftermath books. It's just there's so much great lore in there. There's so many great characters that are developed for that. And I mean, we're getting some with Ray Sloan. But there's other characters. Like there's like I forget his name, but there's an ISB agent that sort of crossed over. Or a former ISB agent that's working with the New Republic. That was a really cool character.
Yeah.
And, those are the people I'm kind of looking for because obviously spies are a big part of this this arc. And, man. So why don't we get into this comic book series here?
Let me say one thing about that real quick. It's just that what's interesting about that thing about Aftermath, like one of the first things they published, and now we're 10 years later, and this is published. This demonstrates that they are really focused on keeping a single lore continuity because boy, does this comic really make sure there's a path for Aftermath to still happen, right? Because like Ray Sloan, like all the remnant stuff. I just think it's interesting that like they're trying to thread that needle with the Mandoverse stuff with this, and it seems to be working. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Yeah, but let's jump into this.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about this here. So it is Star Wars Battle of Jakku. It is Republic Under Siege.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Are you sure?
Yep.
I thought the last one was called Republic Under Siege. Why am I? Oh, no, I think I started notes and then I changed them. Okay.
Yeah.
Alex Segura, Rafaela Morales, Sinclair Campbell, and letters by VC's Caramanga. So this is like a really fascinating story. It's very convoluted. It's very spycrafty and like Andor-y. And there are, a lot of parties in place. I think we sort of start with, we have this Governor Ubrick Adelhard character.
Yep.
Who reminds me of this orange fascist president that I'm familiar with, and some of you might be as well.
Yep.
And where he's
everyone
just like,
make them believe.
He's like fake news. The emperor's alive. Fake it till you make it. I'm great. Everything's going to go to my plan. It's fantastic. So he thinks he's the one pressing the buttons. He's in the Anawat sector, which is like the Hoth's system. Well, it's not the Hoth system is within the Anawat sector.
Right.
And, he's got a witch from the Acolytes of Beyond.
Yeah, love it.
And so he's just like, I'm going to consolidate power. I'm going to play all these people, Gallius Rax and Ray Sloan, they're trying to consolidate power, because they're getting the Operation Cinder instructions, and they're really the central point of the Imperial Remnant. And but Adelhard is this outlier who's like, okay, I'm doing my own thing. They're going to bend to my will.
Yeah.
And, and Ray Sloan and Gallius Rax are like, do we have to fight him too? Because this is not our marching orders.
They seem so just put upon and like just like, oh, this dude,
dude.
Yeah. They don't seem like intimidated or like overly worried at times. They just seem like we can't fight a war on two fronts. And I'm wondering if the whole end of the story is going to be like, yeah, the Empire might have actually been triumphant if it wasn't for this one dude who split their. Yeah, like I wonder if that might be the story at the end of it. Just like they could have actually won the Battle of Jakku if it wasn't for this one guy.
Well, I mean, so for those of you that haven't read the Aftermath books, spoiler alert, but the Operation Cinder, this sort of movement, that this last edict from Emperor Palpatine was to bring everyone into the gravitational well of Jakku and destroy the planet and kill both sides.
Yeah, just like wipe
the whole board clean. And so, and obviously the Imperial Remnant didn't know that. Sloane and Rax didn't understand that was their role to play in this. And meanwhile, there's like
Palpatine move.
Yeah, there's another secret group that's being moved to Exegol to, start the First Order or continue the First Order. We know from the comics that actually it's, production's already begun there. And so they're fools, but like Adelhard's the biggest fool. And so in this arc, we get
he's weirdly right. Not right, but like by not following Palpatine, it's the smartest move.
Yeah, that the
Emperor could do, but he's such a dummy. Like he doesn't know that. Like he's like accidentally correct.
Yeah, he's accidentally correct. And not only for self-preservation, but also the like final order sort of edict is like, that's, I mean, if he had survived, maybe he could have connected with them in some way, and who knows, maybe he will survive to move on to the final order. But I just hate him. I hate him so much.
Oh, he's the worst.
He's really bad. And so he's doing that, and then he's employing so he's got Reyna Oscure, who's, like I mentioned, was his right hand witch. Lieutenant Alatia, who I think who was in the last arc, I think she is a Republic mole, right?
She's a spy. Yeah, she's a Republic spy. Yep.
Right, and we're reminded by that when she kills a spy who's about to rat on her, we think.
Yes.
He has Bragg, Captain Bragg, I think, who's in the Dark Trooper Phase 1 armor.
Yeah.
And then he employs the Spice Runners of Kinjimi. To essentially be terrorists and just strike fear into the New Republic and commit terrorist acts and kill potential senators for the New Republic, which is
because also they're pulling in mercenaries and bounty hunters too, which is fun. Like it is just chaos.
It's chaos there, and that's sort of towards the end of this arc. We have Mon Mothma and Leia. There's a great Mon Mothma quote that is, governance rarely holds the same idealistic wonder as revolution. And she's like, we need to build the Republic while defending in its ideals. And I mean, that rings true and
very true.
Just kind of beautiful. And then we have the Akiva Summit. This is with Sloane and Gallius Rax. This is the main Imperial remnant that's trying to, get all the pieces in play for the Battle of Jakku, and ultimately Operation Cinder. So Operation Cinder was also just like randomly destroying worlds.
Planets.
Just firebombing planets. As I guess kind of acts of terrorism. But they were also old like Imperial outposts and stuff. It was like really, they were just like burning down all the old marks of the Empire.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I just love it. I love that's like the best name. The Operation Cinder and what they're doing is just such a great thing. And I'm like, we just need more of it. Like, we need to explore this a little more. I know we've done it in
Chuck
various
Wendig,
things.
who wrote Aftermath, did he create Operation Cinder? Like, where did that?
I think so. I think that's the first time we heard about it, and I'm sure it was part of the story group, right? I think it weirdly is one of the things that connects the best to Exegol and episode 9. So like you can start seeing this through story, but it's not in any of the first, it's not in 7 or 8 at all. I mean, I guess it's like 30 years post Operation Cinder, so they wouldn't really be talking about it, but I don't know. Yeah.
You can see the meta reason for it. It's like Lucasfilm's like, we got to clear the decks here. It's 30 years later. We need to just like get the Empire out of the way. How do we do that? And like, maybe that was his edict, and he's like, okay, I can work with that. And, and did it. And then we've got Luke and Rin Zanat. They think they're chasing relics, but they're essentially find out they're on a fool's errand, arranged by the acolytes of Beyond. And we'll talk about a little cameo we get there later.
Yeah, and the plan there is mostly just taking them off the board, right? Just keeping them away from everything else. Yeah,
keeping them busy so they can like do whatever they're going to do. And then we've got Lando in the Lady Luck, the actual original design of the Lady Luck, canonized, flying around helping out the Republic.
That design of ship was the ship I had in Star Wars Galaxies, old MMO. So every time I see it, I just picture the interior of my.
Oh yeah, every corner of that.
Yeah.
Like I know where all the refreshers
and all my trophies up everywhere. Oh God, I'm so gone. I'm so sad that it's just gone.
It's weird. It's kind of like a hippie bus of a Starship.
Yeah, it totally is.
Yeah. But so ultimately, you've got all these pieces. Edelhard thinks he's the guy calling the shots. And there's a fantastic monologue by his witch right-hand person, Reyna Oscuri, that's just like, you think you're in charge. You're nothing but a puppet for the rest of us. And you're nothing, nothing. You've not made any free will choices, and I'm going to kill you now. And she takes over Edelhard's starship, Star Destroyer. She thinks he was killed by one of the bounty hunters, but he's not. He's sort of dropped on some random planet that's unidentified with Captain Bragg and a random detachment of stormtroopers. And they finally, when Luke gets hip to all this stuff, he gets together with Lando and another really interesting character. And pretty much the whole team is like, oh, we'll just bring a small team. Though on the panel, it looked like about 200 starships.
I thought it literally was just going to be like a fight, like him and like a couple of these other people, and then suddenly it's a giant panel of like, oh, okay. I guess
I thought it would be a small like infiltration team to like sneak onto the thing or no. But so they arrive to like kill Edelhard, but Reyna has already done it.
Right.
And they're like, okay, bye. And they leave. And then, and that's kind of it. that's sort of, and then, ultimately there's these terrorist attacks, done against Mon Mothma. They attempt on her life. That's kind of it. But so, yeah, it's sort of like a great, like a big red, like Edelhard's kind of this red herring and he's taken away. And now we're sort of headed towards, the Battle of Jakku. Like we find out that Reyna was really a tool of Gallius Rax.
Yep.
And because we know Tashu is also he's the one sort of leading, or is the sort of liaison between the Imperial Remnant and the Acolytes of Beyond. Love a good Tashu reference. He's a guy with like the Pope's hat that sort of like hangs out with the Emperor.
So fun. So, I just think of episode 6 every time. I'm like, what's those guys? What are those guys doing back there? Yeah.
Like, and now we get it because we're comic book fans. That's the great joy. Yep. So sorry, that was a very meandering way to sort of describe this arc, but it's essentially like
there's so much going on.
Spycraft. There's all these moles from the Republic that are in there trying to like their information, and then you have this counterforce with the bounty hunters that are interesting. There's a Trandoshan, and you're just like, that? And like, there's even a panel where it looks like, what's your name? But it's not Bosk.
It's not Bosk. I don't know why it's not Bosk. They will not touch. Something's going on because they will not touch the original bounty hunters. Like in this era, they didn't do it in the Mandoverse. Like it's wild to me that. Does someone have like a idea for a movie and they just don't want to like
Spielberg is like, I want to make a Bosk movie, and they're like, no, but we're also not going to use Bosk in anything. Like,
or is that like, or did like Lucas at some point, like all his visits, jokingly said, maybe one day I'll come back and make a bounty hunter movie, and they're like, we can't ever put it away in case Lucas wants to come back. Like, just
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's so weird. But super fun character nonetheless. I mean, you love a Trandoshan bounty hunter, right? Yeah. Like you just can't go wrong. That's so complicated in a way that I'm glad I read it twice. Like the way I usually do this, we talked about off air and I've talked about before, is I read them as they come out week to week or month to month, or I think this is actually bi-weekly. And then like when we're going to cover it, I reread the arc. And for this, it was super helpful because by the time I read the fourth one after it came out, I was just like, I don't know what's happening. I don't remember any of this. And then reading them in a row, I'm like, okay, I think I got it. I think I got it. Like maybe.
Right, but not really.
Yeah.
Like it's because there's so many misdirects and there's so many spies.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, okay, you know, random people are getting killed left and right for being spies in the Empire. And, you know, you're just like, wait, wasn't that person like, why did she kill a rebel if she is a rebel? You know, and so that stuff was all interesting. But I mean, maybe we should get into like these weird cameos.
Sure.
The first exciting one is Dr. Aphra.
Yep. I was so excited. My favorite character, original character for the comics. So excited to see her. Because again, I know we see last time we saw her, she was like sitting she was just around watching. Yeah. The second Death Star blow up, I think. As was
she was hanging with Sana Staros, I think.
That's right. She was with Sana Staros, so we saw that. So it's just nice to get her kind of back in to be like, yep, she's still just being Aphra, and like kind of came in for like good pages. Yeah, for 10 but like not like I was waiting for the turn for her to be like, I'm actually here to like screw you over this way, but she's basically like, no, not a real artifact. We need to get out of here. You need to go do your thing. Like, you know, I owe you kind of. So it was nice. It's a good reintroduction of that character that, you know, I love her because she's not quite the same as Han. Like she has a good heart, but it's not as good as Han's, you know? Yeah.
She's definitely prone to violence. And this does feel like a new era of Aphra, you know, because she's kind of like Loki. She's kind of like a little like trickster that stumbles in, but actually is a boon to the rebellion and is like, no, Luke, let me help you out here.
Yeah.
Because they do have a past as well. They've crossed paths and
quite a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, they know each other, but like, it's just an interesting, funny cameo to have her be like, no, I'm a force for good, chaotic force for good. And see you later. You know, I've passed along this, you know, Deus Machina information and now.
Yep. And I'm out. And I wonder in the kind of when they're referring to Han meeting up with an unlikely ally or a weird ally, I wonder if that's not going to be, it's going to be that or the other cameo. And boy, am I hoping it's Aphra and not the other one we're going to talk about for a moment.
Yeah. So the other cameo comes much later. But essentially when the Republic realizes they're dealing with these bounty hunters, and they need like a killer that can go after Adelhard. One of their spies, Barons, I think is his name.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Colden Barons, is like, I got a guy. And we immediately flash to Violet Valance.
Our favorite character. Valance.
The hero of the bounty hunters comic
so-called bounty hunters series, which is called the Valance series.
Anyway, he is a T-1000 Terminator like bounty hunter that's, I guess, is on the good side now. He's got a heart of steel or platinum or chromium or whatever. I don't know what his heart's made out of anymore, but
he seems to be still kind of being a bit of a bounty hunter mercenary, but mostly for the good, right? Like will only take contracts he agrees with. Yeah, the fact that we are now full, if anyone remember, Valance it was a holdover from the old EU comics. I mean, they completely restarted and redid his story, but like he was very popular, but he is exactly what you're saying. He was, when you look at the timeline, when he popped into the comics, it was after Terminator and how popular Terminator was. He's a Terminator. And like, and now they've done full end run. Valance looked like at the end of his run there where he just has half of his face is gone and he just has a Terminator skull. And I'm just like, I'm just not here for it. I'm sorry. Like, just whatever.
Yeah. I was just, he was just in everything for so long. And now he's still in everything. And it goes like, so now it's like, why wouldn't he be in, like, why wouldn't he show up in the Mandalorian movie? Like,
right. Like,
he's probably alive. You can't kill him. Nothing can kill him. Maybe
nothing can. Nope. You can take his memory away, but you can't kill him. And
I mean, eventually, like maybe his like normal flesh, I think there's still part of him that's real. Is it his brain? I don't know, like some part of his, he has some organic matter.
He has a little bit, but I think he's gone not a ton. I feel like one of the last revelations is that he's actually like fully machine at this point and like fully droid, which he hates because he hates droids. I guess that was part of his thing, right? And then he's is a droid and I don't know. I just, there's part of me that's just like, oh, well, we haven't seen him for a while. But then I just, after like 2 panels, I was like, no, I'm done. I'm out.
He didn't really do anything here. He flew the ship and then was
just
like,
being a badass.
Too late. Okay, bye.
It is very strange, right? Because it was almost like both his and Afra's pop-ins were very similar, where it's just like, here's 2 pages of these characters, a couple pages. They pop in and do something kind of helpful and then are out. And it's just like, is that like a, hey, remember these guys? Because you're going to see them again soon. Like it felt very like, don't forget, we have these 2 characters that we created just for the comics. So
I think that's pretty much what it was.
That's my fear, is that the unlikely alliance that Han Solo is going to deal with is Valance, because they have kind of a sordid history together. And I'm like, don't do that, Alex. You're so much better than that. You don't need to do that.
Who is it? I blame Pablo Hidalgo. I don't know why. I don't know Pablo Hidalgo. I've read 4 interviews with him my whole life, but I feel like he's the one that's like, Valance is awesome. Like there's someone in that story group that's like, it could be really, Filoni. It's just like, Valance is awesome. I love that dude. And
it does seem like a Filoni thing. Filoni seems like he would love that character. And that's not even a shot against Filoni. It's just, I like Filoni a lot, but that seems like his kind of speed in some ways. But I'm like,
I know, but it's got to be someone. Yeah, it's got to be someone who was hardcore into the EU and was like, old school EU. And like,
I mean, that does sound like Hidalgo. Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think of like other things, so there was an attempt on Mon Mothma and Princess Leia's Senator Organa's life.
Yep.
And it was this Trandoshan, and the Trandoshan, hard to kill apparently, like kind of got the best of Luke for a second. Luke was there, but then like I'm like, why didn't Luke just cut him in half? Like, and when he got shot in the back by Leia, but like he couldn't slow this Trandoshan down. He's a beast. Ew. And then he punches Mon Mothma in the face with like a fist, like an anvil.
Yeah.
And she recovers, but it's like you never see Mon Mothma get,
it was like unsettling. It was like oof, like because she doesn't, like, you don't think of her as a fighter, right? You think of her as a diplomat and a politician, and like I don't know if it's because she has like the gray hair, even though she's not, like, she doesn't seem old, but to like watch a elderly stateswoman get punched directly in the face is like, I don't know, I don't want to see that. Like, just like, it's rough.
I mean, like, I'm pretty sure my head would fall off if I got punched by a Trandoshan.
Yeah. I mean, I guess she is a badass. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. She can take a punch. I don't know. Maybe Perrin. I don't know. I'm not going to get on that road. But like that was brutal and weird. And that was there. We got some spice. Please.
Yeah. I was going to say, we have another cameo kind of related to that, which is Weasel. Weasel pops up, right?
Weasel from cameo.
From episode 1 and Solo.
Yeah, right. He was in Solo too, and he hasn't aged a day.
No, at all.
I have the One Ring. I'm not sure. Like,
right? I mean, maybe. I mean, he is played by it was in my brain and it just dropped. Warwick Davis.
Yeah, right? Who also really hasn't aged that much in real life.
And so part of me is like, I don't know, like in real life. He's a little person, but I don't know if they're trying to make him maybe another species because it's Star Wars, right? He could be an alien that doesn't age, but like he's been around since like episode 1 and does not look at all different. Yeah.
I mean, the way they drew him, it was just like full, like you never get a look like that. It's just like his face, center frame on a like panel, like in immaculate detail, and you're like, is exactly. He even looks younger than he did in Phantom Menace.
He does, and it's like it is a spitting image of Warwick Davis. Like like sometimes they draw some people like Han. When we see Han in this thing, I'm like, that does not look Han to me. But like that was like, I would you didn't even have to put a name up. I would be like, that's Warwick Davis right there, like on the page. Right. It's pretty amazing.
You didn't know Weasel was a character.
Yeah,
that was a funny one, and it turns out he is, he's like with the bounty hunters, but he's also a mole for the New Republic.
Everyone's a mole for someone.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that's in a contract somewhere for Warwick Davis. So, that's pretty funny. So that was a good one as well. There was, we get the Spice Runners of Kijimi. So it is, I can't think of her name now, the mom of Kerry Russell's character.
Something Bliss,
Zori Bliss, and so I think it's Ziva Bliss.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Her daughter is Kerry Russell, Zori Bliss. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting, especially if you play Outlaws like I do. Because I always thought like they were part of the Ashiga clan, but no, they're just on Kijimi, and the Ashiga clan exists separate. But I forget we read a book and I was
Free Fall. I think it was called something like that. Was that the one or another one?
Free Fall? I think it was, and it's the Poe Dameron book.
It's Poe Dameron
centers around Poe Dameron and Zori Bliss.
Yeah,
and it's all about like the Spice Runners of Kijimi and his time as a Spice Runner.
Yep.
And
I remember 0% of that book.
Yeah. I just remember that like she was kind of at odds with her moms and like, but I thought the Ashiga clan, like I thought that they were part of the Ashiga clan, and because the helmet kind of
look like
evokes, but the Ashiga are, what we learned from this video game, are actually like an insectoid species, and they don't have eyes.
Right.
And so like the helmet looks like that. So it's kind of a like carryover. So, but they don't really say the Ashiga clan anymore. I think they just call them the Spice Runners of Kijimi.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they kind of took over the Ashiga clan, and that's kind of like, it's just like, I don't know, like you just kind of take the images of the people you take over, you know, in a weird way of just like a dominance play. I don't know.
I should do more research on that to get and like check out that book again, or like the Cliff Notes, because I kind of forget, but I thought that they sort of, the Ashiga clan was part of the domain of Ziva Bliss.
I am amazed with how much time we've spent on Kijimi in Star Wars post episode 9, which I'm like, I like it, but I'm like, I never expected to say Kijimi and talk so much about like the politics of that planet. So many times.
It's a really cool planet.
It is super neat. Yeah.
I mean, in the way it's fleshed out in Outlaws is awesome.
I love it. I love it in Outlaws. Yeah.
You get the whole like, you know, Syndicate. They're on Syndicate class. It's like, it's a frozen planet, and it's like beautiful, and it's it's just a gorgeous, you only go through Kijimi City, and it's like, it's a really cool city, and it's beautiful, and the architecture is cool, and
and it's all city. Like in that game, in that part of the game, like the other planets, you're out in the wilds. In this game, it's all just back alleys and planets, and I love that of just like trying to remember your way. Like, do I go to that alley? Do I climb over this fence? It's like
I have to use. I pop in the map up every 2 seconds
all the time. Yeah.
But that was super fun, and you the Crimson Dawn's involved, and you have to choose a side, and it's like
yeah. Other things I was kind of noticing is like, I not to get too whatever about it, but you know, I use the word horny, but I kind of like it when Star Wars gets a bit, a bit randy, because we don't get that a ton. And like, that's one of my favorite things in The Acolyte was that like seduction scene with the stranger was like when he's just naked walking around. Like, that's awesome. Like, we don't see that stuff a ton. We don't need to get R-rated or go far with it, but like have a little bit of that stuff there is kind of interesting. And to have Adelhard and the Witch, like so much of that is just, I love the kissing and kind of like just like the just the attraction. They hate each other, like, but he's super attracted to her. Like, I just love that whole play of just, he cannot get a straight. I love that you brought that up, and it's again for the 900th time we're going to mention Grant, because he was kind of on one, and a really good point where like romance is really missing from Star Wars and could be used in a really fantastic way. And I'll let him speak for himself, but in case he sort of forgets by next week or whenever he joins again, he's got a really good point there. And you could do a lot of really, great things with romance in Star Wars, and they don't do it enough. But I mean, it's kind of hilarious because it turns out that that Reyna is she's an agent of Gallius Rax's, and Gallius Rax is like through Colonel Rand or Grand Moff Rand. Yeah. He's like, activate the asset, and she tries to kill Adelhard, like stab him in the back. Yeah. And he catches her, and then they make out. Yeah, they make out. Yeah. It's like, and I was like, nice. Yeah. Yep. No, I love it. There's a very thin line between love and hate, right? If I've learned nothing else in this life. It's very, very true. No, I love it. And it's like, and it's like it ends. I mean, we can go back, but just the ending of just like, I love the fact that she didn't like, it's such a Bond villain move. She didn't like actively kill him. Right. Just, they're all on a escape pod, just rocketing down. I think her instruction was to kill them. Yeah. But I think that the bounty hunter had other instructions right,
to just drop them on the planet.
Yeah, but like not in a way that that guaranteed their survival or death. That's what's kind of weird about it, right? Like,
right, yeah, but so when I was rewatching it, I was like, oh, but did he drop them on Hoth? Because that is a death sentence,
right?
But it's not Hoth.
It's not.
Hoth is in the Anahuac. So,
yeah, it's like it's just it's a planet. It's like a green planet. And I'll
they
say
may have died in the crash. It didn't look like
they may have
a lot of boosters, but we know they didn't. Right?
They didn't. Aldehard's a cockroach. It just lets don't count them out. And we know at the very least the Death Trooper survives. I just love I love any cliffhanger that ends with the hand coming up. The hand coming out of the thing. I wish they didn't. They had the hand coming up, and then in the next thing they show.
Did they have the hand coming up?
Oh yeah. It's the very end. They have like the hand coming up, and then hands right there, and then you have the Dark Trooper there. And I just wish they only did the hand and not show the Dark Trooper, because then it would have been like, whose hand is that? But anyway, we'll see.
Yeah, maybe it was. Maybe it could have just been the Dark Trooper, but like no one cares about Captain Bragg, really.
I don't know. That seems like wasted potential, because the second that person walked on screen, I'm like, that's cool. Who's that one? And then it's just like he's just a heavy who's not very heavy, who keeps getting like owned by people, where I'm like, all right, so this guy's just nothing, a big bag of nothing. I know. I
almost want to see him out of the suit.
Yeah,
like, just to like that would be more.
I just wanted to be like, get out of the suit. He's some like scrawny nerd.
yeah. Well, actually,
yeah,
that would be really fun.
Yeah,
but so. Not a ton of Jakku lore. It's always great to see Admiral Sloan. They had the Akiva Summit, another Outlaws reference.
Yep.
Though when we see them, they're on a planet called, and I'm not even going to be able to pronounce this. There's Crassus is there, which I think is a callback to an old Republic planet that they mentioned.
That name sounds familiar. Yep.
But they were on Sowcer, Sowcecer.
Sure.
It's sort of like where they were hovering around. I love that they're just like, oh yeah, they're on Sowcer. Like, don't worry about it. It's a new planet.
Yep.
They sort of they picked their spots when they labeled planets. But that's pretty cool. Mon and Leia are on Chandrila, and I love that sort of like, we're just going to start with Chandrila here, and then ultimately are going to move to Hosnian Prime, we know, at some point.
Yep. Maybe that'll make me care more about when Hosnian Prime's blown up, if you do enough backfill.
Right. Yeah. Like in the next Star Wars main run, I think we'll find out why they go to Hosnian Prime to decentralize the government, and we'll see that. Though it's just like they've got a space laser that can shoot through hyperspace and hit multiple targets. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Can I ask a large scale question about this whole series? So, comic series often get named prior to the actual full arc being written, and also with the idea of marketing in mind. My famous example always is War of the Bounty Hunters, like great title. Right. There was no War of the Bounty Hunters in any of those things.
Right.
This is called the Battle of Jakku.
Republic Under Siege. Subtitle.
Yes, but the main thing of 12 issues is the Battle of Jakku.
Yeah. Are we going to see the Battle of Jakku?
We are 8 out of 12 issues in. I will not say anything about the next 4 issues, but do you feel like this might be slightly misnamed? this series. I like it. I like what they're doing. That's not a critique on like the content. It's the critique on naming.
I think we're gonna get it.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, so we know it's only gonna be 4 issues.
Yeah.
I think because in Aftermath, the Battle of Jakku was pretty short. Like a day.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a siege or anything.
I mean, that's a good point, right? Like it's just kind of happened and then it was done.
They met, it was a melee, it was insane. There was the battle underground, there's the whole, so there was like this fight to like destroy the planet, and then like ultimately they didn't do it because of, I think Ray Sloan stopped them because she was like, I'm not killing myself. This is stupid. This goes against everything I was, and I don't know how the Emperor didn't see that. And I don't know how the Emperor didn't know that like hadn't existed, but it just shows he's all about lying and pretending he's the greatest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
I think we might get it.
Okay. Yeah, I think we might too.
But from a certain point of view, like I think we might get it from the Republic's point of view, and like we might just miss all of the I mean, maybe we get a Snap Wexley cameo in there somewhere because he did play a part a little bit. And
as long as we get Mr. Bones with him.
Oh, Mr. Bones. Yeah, Mr. Bones. I think he got destroyed in that.
I think so. Yeah, I think he did. Yeah.
And then, but there's also in that Mon Mothma plays a part, so that's a little overlap there. But the pilot, why can't I think of his name? Wedge Antilles.
Oh, Wedge, yeah.
And so Wedge Antilles is dating Snap Wexley's mom, and I forget her name. Oh God, her husband played a role in that too. Remember, he was like wildly resurrected when they thought he was dead, but he was like, there was a hostage transfer, and like, whoa,
yeah.
But like, yeah. I mean, there's some stuff going on the ground there. Yep. Gallius Rax as well. I think Gallius Rax was the one that was trying to actually destroy the planet. He knew what he was signing up for. And Sloane stops him. That would make more sense.
That sounds right. Yep.
Yeah. And then, Sloane escapes to the outer regions and I think joins up with the Final Order.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. I mean, I guess the other thing I'll kind of backtrack on my critique or argument a little bit is like, I guess you could argue that, there's a whole movie called Attack of the Clones, and the clones don't really attack until the last 15 minutes of that movie.
Yeah.
And it still works, because it's all about the clones, and this is all about Jakku. Like, it's not like they're talking about it through most of the series when you flash back or flash over to the remnant empire. But I just always love it with the naming stuff where I'm like, I'm sure they come up with a name and that's like super going to sell, right? Because people like love Jakku and the idea of it. And I'm like, I can't fault them for that. But you know me, I get annoyed when comic book covers lie, which I have no examples of that yet in this.
Yeah.
And when you just title something to get readers and it's not really what you're delivering.
Yeah.
This I'm less upset about. I'm still really mad about War of the Bounty Hunters. That one really.
I know. I mean, it would have been really fun if we were just in the Battle of Jakku, but I think that it's fun the way they've sort of set up,
and it's been told
Adelhard and but it's like I would like to see a lot of the Battle of Jakku in the next arc, which is I forget what it's called.
Last Stand.
Last Stand.
Yeah, and the last issue just came out last Wednesday. So
all right, so let's cover that soon. I mean, actually, it would be kind of nice to do it next week.
You want to do it next week?
And then Grant can sort of dovetail into his comments.
Yeah, because you can get some thoughts about this. Yeah, I'm good with that. We could do that. We are. I mean, the comics are producing right now. We are back to comics. Eventually, we'll have the Ewoks series finished up. Do not discount the Ewok series.
All right.
There's some good stuff in there.
I am discounting the Ewok series.
No.
Just to say that out loud.
I think you'll actually really enjoy it because there's a lot of they interact with some bounty hunters, some famous bounty hunters, and they interact with the Empire. So it's not like just them on Endor doing Endor stuff. They're actually like dealing with real Republic stuff, which is fun. And then there's some wacky stuff in it as well. We have a ton that we got to go back and start covering on the High Republic Adventures. I have it on my to-do list tomorrow to go through and just look at like where the arcs break down, and I'll update our spreadsheet. Yeah. So we got comics galore, and then we got a High Republic, or not a High Republic novel. Isn't like the what was that? The Mask? No, Mask of Deception. What's the one coming out? The book coming out next month is.
Sorry,
I had the title.
I know it's in the back of my head, but I've been like, I saw the date, and it's the end of February. I think it comes out.
It's going to come out in a month and a half. But anyway,
what is it about? Who's
that's what we think is like going to be Andor backfill.
The Andor backfill,
it's like the nascent New Republic.
Yeah,
and it's going to be Mon Mothma focused, which will be a fun read. I'm sure it'll be really, really interesting. Anyway,
cool.
Deception. Anyway, so we got stuff to get caught up on before. Probably get caught up on everything right before Andor starts.
Yeah,
we'll cover that for 3 months, which I can't.
We'll be in pure bliss.
Yep.
Awesome. That's great. Well, we missed you, Grant. Hopefully we'll get him back next week, and we'll talk more comics, and we'll talk more about the Battle of Jakku. It'd be fun to put a bow on that. Yes. And thanks very much for listening to us. We always appreciate it very much. And we'll talk to you next week on Cantina Chronicles.